know whether you remember what you told me when we met. Was it 3 years ago?
Yes.
Do you remember what you told me?
Well, I told you to focus on value. So that I remember distinctly, where you were just pricing everything on just dollars and cents and hourly rates and cost
Oh,
and how
we're,
much they can afford and all that.
we're on.
Okay.
But yeah, we'll definitely talk about that. It's 4 o'clock. Thank you, whoever is tuning in. Thank you for tuning in. If you can press like so that we know that you're there, that will be awesome, so that we don't feel like we're talking to ourselves. My name is Hetal Doshi, and I'm an organizational psychologist. This is part of an ongoing initiative to support our community with regards to well-being. We've launched a series of interviews with experts and everyday heroes. And today with me is Jayesh Parekh. He'll tell you a little bit about why it's valuable to listen to him, but I'll tell you why it's valuable to listen to him first. I've known I find it so awkward saying Jayesh. I've known Jayesh Uncle since I was, I don't know, maybe about 5 years old. We were neighbors, barely spoke. I think 3 years ago we connected. We met him in Jakarta when he was there, and I happened to be there as well. And he shared with me something that kind of changed the way that I looked at with regards to everything. Where I initially used to go and look at business with regards to sales or services, he used to. One thing that he told me was, do you remember what you told me, Jayesh Uncle?
Please tell me.
You're not the service, you are the solution.
There you go.
So you are not saying you're selling a service. You are the solution for the entire problem, because you're going to look at the entire problem and say, I'm going to be part of solving this entire thing together with you. And from there, this is not about money. This program is not about money. This session is not about money either. But because I had a new way of thinking, the level of perspective that I had with regards to everything brought me up to like maybe 50% increase in my sales. And obviously a lot more valuable relationships and healthier relationships as well, because I wasn't going for services anymore. I was going for, I'm with you, I want to bring a solution. So Jayesh Uncle has been a lot of things. From when I knew him, he started out as a businessman, I guess, an entrepreneur of sorts, moved into venture capitalism. He has to correct me with a lot of things. Eventually, what I know him for the most is being a mentor and being very selfless about being a mentor as well. And we're going to start. So, Jayesh Uncle, why should we listen to you? What have you done with your life that is going to be valuable to listen to you with regards to money and matter?
So I think the most important thing that people look at all around is three things. Who, that's who are they? Who are the people that they are dealing with and working with?
Mm-hmm.
What is this big solution that they're providing? Either they're an entrepreneur or if they're working for someone, what is the big picture? And then how are they going to execute it? If they're an entrepreneur again, or they're in business, how are they going to make their numbers, or how are they going to deliver a solution, etc.? This is how people used to do it. And then, of course, a long time came Simon Sinek, and he wrote this book called Why. And so since then, I started asking questions about why. So my three-pronged approach in life is first things that all of us do and work on is wealth affluence. So each one in our own way can answer that question as how much is enough. But whatever that enough is, however much you have, that is wealth affluence, and you practice wealth affluence. Then you start practicing something called time affluence. So you start taking time seriously, and money is not everything. Again, depends on how ambitious you are. And so then comes time affluence. And time affluence is you do what you want to do, when you want to do, with whomever you want to do. So you basically take the remote in your own hand. And then the third thing is mind affluence. And that's where you come in, right? So that's where the health is in the mind, right? So mental health. So that's a huge, big thing. And you learn things like mindfulness and compassion and meditation, and you practice calm and peaceful and happiness in a completely different way. People, substitute money for happiness and happiness for money, which is just one small piece of it, but there's a much bigger play in this mind affluence. So I think the experiences that I've had in my life, in my career as a professional, as an entrepreneur, as an investor, all of this basically came down to these three things.
And when you say wealth and then time and then mind, Did I get you
Yes.
correctly? Why
Yes,
did you
correct.
put it in that order?
Because
Is
what
this
we
the
are all,
lowest order? Is money the lowest order? Is that why you put it?
money is the lowest order in the sense that when you are young, you're a professional or an entrepreneur, budding entrepreneur, then your focus is that you want to make economic affluence,
Mm.
right? And
So
so
economic affluence, yeah.
yes, so you work on wealth affluence and you keep
Mm-hmm.
working on money, and you think that
Mm.
money is end all, and you just keep going,
Mm.
going, going. You hire people,
Mm.
you get customers, you get
Mm.
revenues, you get
Yeah,
EBITDAs, you get more funding, you get exits, and that's
yeah.
when
You
your
get a
wife,
heart attack.
and then you get a heart attack in between, right? Because you run out of cash flow. Cash is king.
Yeah.
If you run out of
Mm.
money, then basically you're out of luck. So you
Mm.
work on wealth affluence, and that's
Okay.
sort of the lowest denominator. And then
Right.
when you start coming out of it and you feel, hey, you know what, I think I'm doing well, you
Mm.
may not have arrived completely,
Mm-hmm.
but you start
Mm.
realizing the balance of life. And so you start saying, hey, wait a minute, I need to balance my life. And in that comes time. And so you start doing time affluence, which means how much
Mm.
time am I spending with my family? How much time am I spending with doing what I want to do? So whether you travel, solo travels, whether you travel with friends,
Mm.
um, you read books, watch
Yeah.
movies, etc. So that's
Mhm.
time affluence. And what
Mm.
the last ultimate thing, which we don't focus on at your age, and
Mm.
but at my age, then you start worrying about
Mhm.
mind affluence also, because unless your mind is calm and it's peaceful, your meditation is not so good, your yoga practices are not so good, your
Mm.
calmness only comes from mindfulness and compassion and giving back. And so
Yeah.
therein comes the third piece, which is
Mhm.
mind affluence.
Yeah. Oh, that's really awesome. So are you also trying to say that human beings tend to be a bit more reactive where we operate from wealth and then time and then the mind? And a more strategic way would be the mind and then how you use your time and then generate the wealth?
Correct, but it's not practical, right? You think about it as you grow through age, right? In the beginning, unless you come from a very affluent parent and you don't need
Mm.
to work, then you can
Mm.
start from the top.
Mm. Yeah.
Otherwise,
Yeah.
even then, you probably start from the middle. If you
Mm.
come from affluent parents, you probably start focusing on time a little bit. Mind
Yes.
comes a little bit later because that's a spiritual thing, right? So
Right.
that
Yeah.
spiritual thing is an awakening, and depending
Mm.
on how you grew up, what circumstance you grew up, or what your DNA is. So there are people, a small percentage, who do start with mind affluence,
Mm.
but they're a few and far between.
Yeah, I guess, the other day when I was speaking to a friend of mine in Bhutan who was also on the show earlier,
I heard it. Yes, I heard him.
they do start their lives out very strongly focused on mind, mind, mind. And they do take a lot of time, and wealth is inherently not the most important thing to them anymore. Even when
Right.
they're poor, they're extremely rich.
Correct.
So
And that's just one country, right? One country. You can't find another country like Bhutan.
I doubt it, but I have a feeling that every time I go to more rural parts, I experience the same thing. I'm not sure whether it's practiced the same way, but I do have that. When we go back to India to a little town or village in Rajkot, everyone is so
Yes.
chirpy and chill and welcoming, and
But don't let that fool you, because at the back of their mind, money plays a big role,
I
because
see. Okay, so we'll make
they
sure
are
we just
they're they're
get
they're
to
out there, they're really enjoying life.
yeah,
They're
yeah,
not starving, but you
yeah,
ask them saying, hey, what's that one thing on your mind? And they will all say, hey, I wish my business was going better. I
yeah,
wish my manager would promote me and give me more money. I wish they saw my value and my worth, right?
yeah.
So
Um,
unfortunately, some people will equate money with success, which is a myth.
Right. Okay. So because I mean, it's really good that you clarified that because don't, like you say, don't be fooled by the external display of actions potentially. Because as you were talking, I was like, maybe it's good to be a hippie. Maybe that's who I should be in my life, like have that concept and then,
Well, go
wealth is
one step
important.
forward and just become an ascetic.
All right, and so we'll move to the next part. I do enjoy time. I do enjoy a lot of wealth as well because I do want to contribute back to the society. Just a couple of people who are shouting out, thank you so much, Michelle, for being such an awesome supporter. She's just recapping wealth affluence, time affluence, and mind affluence. Lisa says thank you for recapping, Michelle, because she missed you. She missed Jayesh's earlier part. Lisa's also saying, I think the MCO may have pushed me to mind affluence, hopefully in a positive way. And Lisa also says, people I know in India always think of money. Okay, let's be nice here. Let's be very constructive. Okay, let's stay on the good side of things.
Okay.
So, can you tell us a little bit about your book? Because your book is based on an interview that you have done with 53 people. Now I understand. Your book is also called "What Shall We Do with All of This Money," which is such a beautiful title. If you came up with it, good job, because it is a.
Thank you.
I think all books should have a question instead of a title. So that's amazing. And could you share with us a little bit about what this book is about, how you went on that journey? Maybe if you can start with what triggered you to even
Okay.
think about doing this and take us through it. Thank you.
So it will help if I just spend a couple of minutes on my background and then
Mhm.
build up to that, because that will all tie up. So I grew up in a
Perfect.
very humble beginning, a lower middle class family in Calcutta. And as I grew up, we didn't have money. When we got a refrigerator at home, that was sort of a huge thing. We didn't have a car. I never sat on a plane all my life growing up until my undergraduate. And then the first time I got on a plane is when I went to US. So
Mhm.
until that time, I'd never gotten on a plane. So I very humble beginning, and that sort of stayed in me to say that, my God, all people around me were successful people. They were happy people because all of them had money,
Mhm.
and I didn't, right? So I
Mhm.
felt I had a small inferiority complex, right?
Mhm.
Because I didn't have enough. Now, going forward, then I went to University of Texas at Austin. Very fortunate to get a job with IBM in Houston, and then I was in this marketing department of IBM. And one
Mhm.
day I got a call to say that, hey, we're starting India as a country again, and so can you go to Singapore, because we are going to start India from Singapore, called offshore operations, because there was no
Mhm.
IBM in India. And
Mhm.
so we felt, okay, here's an adventure. Never been to Singapore, looked it up on the map, and we landed up here. And so
Say Windy Heights.
I was staying in Windy Heights, right neighbor of
Yeah,
yours.
we're
And
neighbors. Yeah.
so as I went through that whole journey with IBM and with offshore operations and India, then along the way, then IBM did so well that they said, okay, now we're going to move this onshore, which is to India. And I didn't want to work in India. I'd never worked in India. And they asked me to go back to Houston, and then we didn't want to go back to Houston. So after 12 and a half years in IBM, I quit and I settled down in Singapore. And
Mhm.
along the way, I flipped my US citizenship to Singapore citizenship. So I'm on my
My
third citizenship
gosh,
now,
my
and
gosh.
I'm a Singapore citizen now.
Yes, the
And then
elder
I did
generation paid
and then I
loyalty.
did 9 startups. And in that 9 startups, one of the startup was a TV channel called Sony Entertainment Television, which was
Yeah.
a huge, blockbuster exit, and therefore very successful. And so that's when I decided that, okay, that was enough. I'm going to retire. Right? That's
Mhm.
what you do. Well, what do you do? It's almost a super exit like that. The analogy is that it's like the last day of the last exam in your college. You're all waiting for it, saying, wow, last exam, life is going to be just amazing from now on. And you wake up the next morning and there's a massive void. You just feel a vacuum. And
Uh,
that's what happens when you have a massive exit, because you're saying, okay, I've been working so hard and I got all this money. Now what? Right?
yeah.
So I
What
said,
should I
okay,
do normally?
let's retire. And so I tried to retire. For 9 months, I traveled. I went to Gandhi Ashram and served. I went to Vipassana meditation. I traveled the world. I did everything that anybody wants to do.
You
And at
still
the end of that, sorry,
you're still traveling widely.
and of course I do travel widely, but at the end of that 9 months, we basically, I came to the conclusion that basically I can't retire, right? So I was, my mind was too young to retire. And so I actually introduced two of my friends, Amit and Anurag, who then formed Jungle Ventures and asked me to be a general partner. So I did 2 funds of Jungle Ventures. Now they're on their third fund. Finally, a year ago, I told them that I've had enough. I no longer want to be part of Jungle Ventures as a full-time operator. I'm now a senior advisor. So
Mhm.
now as a senior advisor, I started going from wealth affluence. I went to the next level, which is time affluence. And then
Mhm.
in that time affluence, then I said, okay, I have seen people around me, all these amazingly affluent people around me in Singapore and India and USA. And I just worry about this one thing. And so I came up with a one-liner, which is, you work very hard to make money. Then you work very hard to make money on your money, and then
Mm.
you die.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you work very hard to make your money, and then you die. In between that time that you're spending working hard to make money on your money, 90% of the time you're not doing it for yourself. You probably don't
Mm-hmm.
need that much money. So either
Mm-hmm.
you're doing it because of your kids, and so you're
Mm-hmm.
working for your kids, or you got nothing else to do in your life, and so saying, I'm really passionate about it, so I really love my
Yeah.
job, and so
Yeah.
oh, psych is really my life, and therefore I'm going to do that till the last day as
Forever.
I'm forever. But in many cases, people are doing that because they want to give back. And so they're saying, I want to make money so I can give back to the community, which is a good
Yeah.
cause. And
Yeah.
so I said, I have this fantastic network of people that I know and of Indian diaspora. So I pick people from Indian diaspora who are in my network from places like US and UK and Africa, Bahrain, Dubai, Indonesia, not Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore, India. From
Mm-hmm.
all these places, I interviewed people of different walks of life, like executives, senior executives, businessmen, entrepreneurs,
Mm-hmm.
lawyers, private bankers, professors,
Mm-hmm.
intuitives,
Mm-hmm.
impactors, so social impactors, impact investors, millennials, gurus, right? So
Mm-hmm.
all these series of people that I interviewed and
Mm-hmm.
found, and so the tagline in my book is, "What shall we do with all this money?
Yeah.
Inspiring perspectives on wealth."
Right.
So the part of it is saying, how can we find some inspiring perspectives, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just making money by itself can't be the end all. So that was
Yeah.
my motivation. And that's what the whole series of it is. So there's a beginning where I put out some early thoughts about what I think about money. And then I set the basis of all these interviews, which I said that, I've interviewed all these people. And then it goes on at the end, I put some concluding remarks. However, what I'm not doing is I do not uh, give you a solution.
Mm-hmm.
You have all these inspiring perspectives, and whatever works for you may not work for me, may not work for Michelle. Everybody will take away different things from that book, and you
Yeah.
take away what you want from that book. And so
Right.
part of it is there are people who want to set up their trust, charitable trust,
Mm.
family
Mm.
foundations. So these are all
Mm.
large family foundations. And you have
Mm-hmm.
3-4 people like Rohini Nilekani, Nandan Nilekani's wife, and
Mm-hmm.
Ratan Tata, and Amit Chandra. These are like amazingly well-known names in the Indian diaspora who will give you their perspective. And then there are
Mm.
people who are executives, senior executives like Dr. Naveen Bhatt in Singapore,
Mm.
who educates kids. So he picks 2
Mm.
kids from cities like Ahmedabad, 2 kids from Bangalore, 2 kids from
Mm.
Delhi, and he
Mm.
basically takes them from middle school, and he will pay for
Mm.
their education all the way through the end of their career, their business education,
Right.
right?
Right.
But it's
Yeah.
not just a question of writing a check.
Mm.
He actually he and his wife visits them in their houses wherever they are,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And those kids get on a plane and come to Singapore and stay with them for a week.
Oh, wow. Wow.
And so there are
Wow.
stories like
Yeah.
that, right? So there
Right.
are so many different types of stories, and different things appeal to different people. So that's
Okay.
basically
So,
what my book is all about.
right. So you interviewed 53 people. I just wanted to clarify, not all of
Mhm.
these people are extremely affluent. You
No,
had a
no,
range of levels
correct.
of wealth
Yes,
or
yes.
income.
It was
And
not,
yep.
yes, it was not to do with wealth. It was to
Yep.
do with the walk of life and the geographic location. So if
Right.
the thought processes of people of Indian diaspora in Silicon Valley is different from people in UK, different from people in Bahrain, is people
Yep.
in India. So A
Right.
is the walk of life, and 2 is people like private bankers, people like
Mm.
professors. Professors are
Mm.
never like affluent, right? I mean, they do well, but they're not that affluent. But
Right.
again, so it's a different. And then gurus. So there's Om Swami, right? He's a monk. He has zero money, right?
Yeah.
Deepak Chopra, who has money, but he's a modern day monk. So
Mother.
different type of people.
Summarize, you've had 53 people that you interviewed, all of
Yeah,
different range of walks of life, as well as uh, the kind of things that they do professionally. On top of that, different levels of affluence. And the question that you ask them is, what would you do with all of your money? Or if you had X amount of money, what would you do with it? And what were
right.
the five, maybe 3 to 5 things, 5 ways of them deciding how they would spend their money? What were
Yeah.
the five?
So yeah. So
Yeah.
so again, first of all, uh, I asked them about themselves in terms of where they've grown up, how have they grown up, what
Mm,
was their perspective on money.
mm.
Just give me 1 second. Moni, can you please answer the phone?
Please answer the phone.
Sorry about that. Somebody was ringing away the bell. So
No
so
problem.
yeah. So
About 10 more minutes. So I thought
yes.
maybe a good summary would be great. Yeah.
Yes. So again, very just a brief summary of it is basically ask them, give me your circumstances under which you grew up, and then how are your perspective of money then? How is it now? And what is your advice to millennial? This book
Right.
is primarily for millennials. These are
Okay, good.
millennials of affluent parents who are going to inherit hundreds of millions of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them are clueless what they're going to do with it.
Right.
So that is really the primary question is what shall we do with all this money? Is saying, hey, please give advice to the millennials. And of
Right.
course, along the way, they'll tell you what their thesis is. What is it that
Right.
they so Ratan Tata
Right.
talks about Tata Trust, right? Noini
Mm.
Nilekani talks about what they're doing. She and Nandan Nilekani are doing with their
Right.
money in terms of giving back. So it's all the
Right.
thesis. And so what are the
Right.
things that came out of it? I think of course, you have to read the book.
I
That's the
promise
best
you
way
I
to do it.
will.
Yes. So that's the best
Copy.
way for you to find out. But I think the most important single thread is giving back.
Mm.
Everybody
Yeah.
wants to give back to the community, to the world. It's only different ways of giving back. There are some people who want to structure it, they want to hire people, they want to do due diligence and run it like a private equity, like a business, because they're businessmen or they're venture capital people, they're private equity people. So that's how they know how to run their business. And so they run their nonprofit like a business. So that's one
Mm.
set of circumstances you learn from the book. The second set is that if people have with the right heart, just decide that education is what really excites me, that's what I'm going to do. Then they set about their own model and then they fund it, but they do it. But it's not just funding, but it's also applying themselves to it. Right. So
Right.
that's what, just for example, Dr. And then the third one is somebody saying that, listen, I don't want to build my own empire. If
Mm.
Hetal is doing this amazing job with this nonprofit,
Mm.
then I'm going to support her. So that's like Warren Buffett supporting Bill Gates.
Yeah.
So there are people
And
like that.
share with us how much he invested or
No,
how
so I
much he
mean,
gave.
$40 billion, right? I mean,
Yeah.
so
Almost all.
so so Bill Gates, who had $40 billion, gave $180 million to his three kids, $60 million each.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody did a big study. He got
Mm-hmm.
somebody to do a study saying, hey, I got three kids. How much money do I need to give them so that they have a reasonable life? And he came up with a number like $60 million. He said, you give them $60 million, they
To
can live
check
happily ever after.
to his
Yes,
children.
to his children. And then $39.82 billion, he put it into Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation.
Right.
And
Oh.
he just said that what we're going to do is that we're going to give away all this money during my lifetime. That was his original thesis.
Yeah.
But as that money kept growing, because Microsoft shares kept going, and then
Yeah.
one day, Warren Buffett gave him $40 billion.
Yeah.
Suddenly now he had to extend that. So now his new thesis is Bill or Melinda, whoever lives the longest, plus 15 years. In that lifetime, they have to give away the money. Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation.
Right. Okay. And from this, I thought it was going to be, I think one of the most valuable things that you've said out of everything, of course, that's valuable, was that the common thread across all different people of different walks of life, as well as different levels of wealth, is that all of them want to do good.
Yes. All of them
It's
want
just,
to give back.
all of them want to, sorry, all of them want to give back.
To the
All of them want
community. Saying, so, there are people who came from very humble beginnings. And people who come from humble beginnings will never forget where they came from. And for them, education is extremely important, for example. And they got good education, they made it somehow, and then they make it good. Then they remember their past and they'll say, hey, listen, you know what? I want to give back and help other people because I was so fortunate. So that's that. And then there are people who are extremely affluent, who never need to work, and they suddenly inherit, let's say, $100 million. I mean, how much can you while away? You can buy yachts and you can buy Rolls Royce and you can fly around in a private jet.
Over here, sitting over here saying you can pass some to me or some to us.
So I have an answer to that. Hold on. I have an answer to that. So when I show my book, what shall we do with all this money? My very good friends, some of them come to me and say, give it to me.
Yeah.
And so my answer to that, including you, Hital, is
do with all that money.
Whoever has the best thesis of what to do with that money, I'll give that money to them. Not all of it, part of it. So if you have a good thesis, anybody who has good thesis of what shall we do with all this money, including my money, I'm more than happy to help and support that thesis.
Perfect. So my team is tuning in right now and they're on this
Yes.
already. I'm joking. So what you've said in terms of a summary is everybody wants to give back.
Yeah.
Where they choose to give back may differ. Where they want to apply that may differ. There
Yeah.
are three typical ways that they do it. It's either a process kind of a way, it is a doing by hand kind of a way, and the
Right.
third one is if they actually want to ride on somebody else. Now,
Right.
I think since this I think to those who are listening right now, mental health can also be understood as mental state. So I
Mhm.
wanted to know, did you see any correlation between the ones who are more affluent
Mhm.
versus, and we're going to get into a very, what do you call it, sensitive ground right now, actually,
Mhm.
because wealth is always, perceived to be something that's a little bit of a touchy topic for some.
Yeah. Yeah.
Was there a difference between high wealth or high income? How do you call it? High net worth
Yeah.
and
High net worth.
affluence,
Yeah.
as well as their mental state. So, did you see a correlation, a difference, a
Yes.
similarity?
Yes. In most cases, except for that one set of people who are incredibly lucky, they are very affluent because they're lucky. Okay, so let's set that aside. The rest
Mm,
of them are all people who worked extremely hard, applied their mind, were very strong decision makers, and really wanted to do what they are doing, which is their ambition was to make their business successful, resulting in a lot of wealth. So their
mm,
mindset is a very, very sharp execution. We're going to get this done. I want to
mm,
succeed. And
mm,
so even people who were doing jobs, our senior executives, CEOs, COOs who are in the book,
mm.
even they were extremely very strong decision makers. And their
Right.
mental state of mind was strong,
Mm,
disciplined, and
mm,
hardworking.
mm,
That's sort of a
mm,
common theme that you find, except for the
mm.
barring that one set of people who are extremely lucky. We'll
Right.
just
What do you mean by strong? What is that
so
word?
so again, strong means it's the resilience, right?
Mm,
It's the focus, it's the
mm,
sharpness, it's
mm,
the ambition to collect all the energies around them, which is
mm,
people,
mm,
money,
mm,
mentors, board,
mm, mm.
everything, all that
Right.
energy, align
Mm,
them north for the vector to
mm,
succeed.
right.
That resilience, that sharpness, that focus, that complete attention to the big picture and the details, right? It's a both. It's a 360-degree view, what I call. So
Mm,
the people who are successful with money
mm,
have a better sense of that 360-degree view of their life
mm.
and their business.
Mm. And are you saying that those who have less affluence
Unless they
are
have, see,
not?
look, if you're work in progress, I'm not suggesting that, right? If
Mm,
you're work in progress, but if you
mm,
haven't figured out that 360-degree view and you really
mm,
don't have that sharpness and the focus, what I call business acumen,
mm.
if you don't have that business acumen, a lot of people will try and try and try, and somehow they don't make it. And you wonder, hey, how come these people are not making it? And
Is
they're
it
not making it because
important?
business
Yeah,
acumen is
sorry, go ahead.
extremely, extremely important. Business
Uh,
acumen is basically understanding the economics. So it's an intersection of economics and technology,
mm,
right? So if you're
mm.
applying a technology, but if you don't have economics,
Yeah.
it's very rare that you'll succeed. I mean, you can just fire off the shot and you might succeed, but very difficult.
My question was, is it important to be help financially affluent?
No, it's not.
Mm,
It's your state of mind, right? So if
mm,
your state of mind is that, you know what, I want to become successful and my success is equal to wealth, then
mm,
yes. But
mm,
if you are a content person, and again, how much wealth, right? So, there's a gentleman called Mukesh Ambani. He's
mm.
still working on it. The guy doesn't think he has enough,
Yeah,
right?
I think majority of us, we may not have that boundary at
That's right.
all. We don't have that
That's right.
boundary whatsoever.
So
It's
it is
never
very
enough.
important to think about how much is enough.
So how much is
Because
enough?
yes, and so that important thing is a, how much is enough, and two, when you arrive there, you will keep pushing it up. So let's assume that
Yeah.
1 million ringgit is all you need. Then you say, no, no, but 1 million Singapore would be good. No, no, 1 million
Yeah.
US, and then you keep going, and you say, but now
Yeah.
1 million thing is nothing. I can't buy an apartment. Even an HDB
Yeah.
costs X amount of money.
All
So then
right.
you say, oh, now that I've arrived, and so that keeps pushing up and up and up and up, right?
Yeah. So for the last question that we have,
Yes,
just very simple yes or no to close it.
yes,
Does
yes.
money make one happy?
Answer is partially yes, not by itself. It's not the end all. By itself, it doesn't, but if you have it, it doesn't hurt you. It
Mm.
you see, it takes mind away, so that you're not only focusing on wealth, you can start focusing on time, because you're saying, okay,
Mm.
time affluence and mind affluence, so I can focus on
Mm.
other things. I'm not completely 99% buried into how to make money. So
Yeah.
is yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, we won't be able to end yet because there are some comments coming up.
Okay, okay.
Some of our friends are actually, they're Michelle, as always, trying to get more people in. So kind of you've tagged a couple of your friends. One of our Facebook users, I don't know your name. I'm sorry, I can't see it here. My favorite quote from Creation of Wealth is, "The community is not just another stakeholder in business, but it is in fact the very purpose of its existence."
Absolutely agree.
Who is this wise human being over here? Well done, you. Thank you for that. Michelle is asking, how much is enough? Can you put a number on it, please?
Yes, there is no number, because each one is different. So if I say
Michelle,
that for
sorry.
me, for me,
Mm,
let's assume that I say it is $5 million, right?
yeah,
If Michelle wants to build a school,
yeah,
25 schools in Malaysia or Singapore or
mm,
wherever she is,
yeah,
that's not enough money. So enough
yeah,
is what you want to do with it. If you have a
right,
purpose, then
yeah.
lifestyle, it depends
Oh,
on where you came from, right?
you guys are asking so many more questions and putting up a lot of wise things over here. So somebody is saying, it's not so much as the quantum as it is the purpose. In fact, it's the purpose that defines the quantum. Who are these people, right?
Amazing.
One more is saying Malcolm Gladwell talks about background being a significant factor in success. So your background, people from higher status background know how to speak to and negotiate with authority and get where they want to go. Is this a reason why people don't succeed? I guess maybe people with lower status background.
No,
So
so I
is
don't think
your
so.
setup setting you up?
So can I just say that it's not true? I think people take it for granted that people who are from a higher status, whatever that means, know how to talk, how to negotiate, how to communicate. That's not true, right? People like you and me, Hital, where we came from, look at us. We didn't turn out bad, is it? I mean, we know how to talk, we know how to negotiate, and so my point is, it's not really limited to that.
Yeah, I don't see that the case to I don't see that to be the case at all. I've actually met um uh somebody who lives on the streets in India, a little kid, and boy did he know how to speak and charm and get
Yeah.
us to buy every single ding that he had in his bing.
So one thing though I will say is that the experience that you cultivate in
Good
business
call.
acumen and negotiation, so that you don't leave money on the table. So I have a four prong. Every person is fits in one of the four states. One is that
Hmm.
you're incredibly smart. That means you're very intelligent, right? You could be
Okay,
book smart,
that's one.
intelligent. Then the next
Yep.
one is a savvy. Savvy means that you know how to sell, right?
Okay.
And then after savvy, you become shrewd. Shrewd
Mm,
means I'm not going to leave money on the table. I'm going to fight for
yeah.
my right, whatever is
Yeah.
really I'm worth. So therefore,
Hmm.
shrewd means I'm going to negotiate from a power
Hmm.
of strength. And then the
Hmm.
fourth one
And
is cunning. And cunning says, I'm going to take it all. I don't give a
yeah.
damn. You make it, don't make it, I don't care. So
Right.
I
So
don't do
one
business
more
with
time,
smart and
we'll
cunning.
just repeat that for those who can't really
Yeah.
cope with the level of intellect that you're bringing to the table, which
Smart,
is awesome. I
so
remember you telling me
smart,
that. So smart,
savvy,
savvy,
shrewd,
shrewd,
and cunning.
cunning lost his way already. So
Cunning is
what are
out,
some?
smart is out. So in my, as an investor, smart is not good enough. You have to be
Yeah.
between savvy and shrewd. Then
Right.
that's when you cultivate your business acumen.
So which one would you take, savvy or shrewd, if you
More
had
towards
no
shrewd.
choice? More
More
towards
towards
shrewd.
shrewd. Yes.
Wow. Because
Closer to shrewd. Savvy means, you're sort of kind of, you can negotiate, but you're more gullible.
all right,
You give
okay.
60 cents away and you take 40 cents.
Yeah,
Whereas
the
shrewd
problem that
means
I've had.
I will fight for 60, but even if I get 50-50, I'm shrewd. I'm okay with that.
Yeah. So this wealth affluence obviously then goes against to mine affluence, because I know when I was growing up, my mom kept sending us to all these, religious classes or spiritual classes. And like it's always like, be a good person, be a good person, be a good person. And we find it impossible to,
But if you don't leave money on the table and let the
yeah,
other person cheat you, that doesn't make
you
you a
know,
bad person.
yeah, okay, I get it.
You're
I get
fighting
it.
for your rights.
All
You
right,
build a
okay, fair enough.
fantastic service. You give a fantastic service, and you don't value it.
I agree. I
That's
agree.
not fair.
I know that you're working with some people who are very smart and savvy, but not shrewd enough. I know that you're definitely doing that. And I know that you helped me to bump it up a little bit for myself as well. So I thank you so much for that. A couple more that have come in. How does one transition from wealth affluence to time affluence and onwards? I think what we've discussed is that it's not a natural transition. It could move spaces. Is that correct?
It can, but until you it may not be 100% wealth and then
Yeah.
100% time and then 100% mind. It could be
Yeah.
that as you become aware, then you say, okay, 80% I'm going to focus on wealth and
Yeah.
20% on time. And then as
Yeah.
you get 66% and 33%, and then you start bringing in mind, and so it can be a hybrid.
All
And then you
right.
push
And
more
I
and
think
more towards
sometimes,
effort and less towards wealth.
yeah, I think sometimes you can lose one and go to the other, lose the other, go to one,
On a
and so
given
on and
day,
so
but
forth.
in general, I'm talking about a weighted average.
Okay. All right. And my last question, I think, so thank you so much, Lisa, and Michelle, and another Facebook user whose name I can't see right now, for recapping smart, savvy, shrewd, cunning. So these are things that make it really easy for people to understand as well. One last question before we go. To people who are struggling now, potentially financially, given that it's such a difficult time for a lot of business owners or even employees who feel that they might lose their jobs, or you know, uh, yeah, or all kinds of catastrophic
Mhm.
things in their mind right now.
Okay.
Could you give us one solid piece of
So
advice?
one solid piece of advice is very strong, but more importantly, a fact. All that has happened today in the world is that the circulation of money has been put on pause.
Mm,
The world economics is about circulation of money. You
right.
provide me a service, I pay you, go to somebody else, you eat at a restaurant, then you go fly a plane and etc. Right? So
Mm-hmm.
that circulation of money temporarily for a period of 3 months, somebody's put a
Mm-hmm.
pause on it. Now,
Mm-hmm.
what happens? If I'm sitting at home and I'm not going out, I'm only consuming food. I'm not
Yeah.
consuming airline. I'm not consuming petrol. So therefore, my
Mm,
outlay is not as much as before.
yeah.
So that's just
Yeah.
one small piece of thing. Now,
Mm,
for people who are entrepreneurs and executives, my request and suggestion to them is, instead of, let's say you need to cut the budget by 30%, right? People, what do? They'll just chop off 30% of the payrolls. Instead of that, what
mm,
we are doing now is we are deliberately figuring out the payrolls grid, and the people who are the highest wage earners, we cut their salary the highest. Then the next level, so let's say that 30% cut, the next level is 20%, the next level is 10%. Now, when you do that,
mm,
and let's assume that the budget gets cut by 30%, everybody
mm,
gets the job. Will people be unhappy because they got a pay cut? They'll be unhappy. But you know what?
mm,
The other option was that you'd get fired. So instead of that, all of us stay in the business. You go
mm.
through this tough period of 3 months or 6 months, and then everybody goes back to full salary. And now,
Yeah.
everybody's happy. So again, it is a tough time for people who are on daily wages. It's extremely difficult. There are no easy answers for those people, other than,
Mm,
I mean, there are places where people are giving langar in gurudwaras or on the streets of India. There are people giving free lunches and all of that.
yeah. Sure.
Daily wages, very difficult. But for the rest of us, it also teaches us that there is a time when you do need to add up and save a little bit of money for this rainy day. And this is more than a rainy
That's
day. This is
very
really
true.
a cruel time for some of these people. But again, recognize that you're not spending as much money as you normally were spending. So you need just bare
Mm.
bones enough money to just basically get by this next 3 months. You sit at home, hopefully the internet is okay. You're watching some Netflix or TV and stuff like that and entertaining yourself, playing board games with people and your friends, which don't cost money.
Yeah. So, in one sentence, what is your advice? What would you say then that we should all really think about during these times?
Again, same. I mean, my take is, don't get too paranoid.
Good.
People are constantly watching the news and watching the count and how many here, how many there, sending
So, don't be
WhatsApp.
paranoid. Instead,
WhatsApp.
what should we
It's
be?
repeated
Instead of
again and
parrot,
again. two
I know.
months ago, what we were sending in Singapore, a month ago, the people in US started sending. 2 weeks ago, the people in India
Yeah, it's
started
like
sending the same WhatsApp circulating
circulated.
around.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, A, stay away from doom and gloom news. Two, find things to do. If you thought that you wanted to sing and you didn't find the time, now is the time. Start learning how
I
to sing.
agree. I
Right?
agree.
Do things that don't cost that much money or don't cost any money at all.
Yeah, just to end off as well, we did an interview with 20 leaders, and majority of them were saying the same thing. We don't need much money. We don't.
Yeah, yeah.
We really don't. If we just stay at home and we do with whatever resources, we can find everything that we need anyway. It's all
Especially
here. Yeah.
especially vegetarian people like you, right? I mean, how much does it take?
Hey, vegetarian food is a bit more expensive, right? It
Okay.
just feels a bit more expensive. But
Organic food is a bit more expensive. Okay.
yeah. Well, I'm Hetal Doshi, and together with me is Jayesh Parekh, Jayesh Uncle, who is also a serial entrepreneur, venture cap mentor, an author of What Should We Do with All This Money, and more importantly, super spiritual person. I think that's the best part about you. And we've been talking about mental health and do the affluent differ? And one last parting comment from our Facebook user, super wise words, really well said. There is enough for our need, but greed. So let's just focus on needs and not greed. I thank you so much. I know your time is so valuable. You have time affluence, so I'm sure you choose your time very carefully, and you've chosen to invest it for the community. So thank you so much for that.
And thank you so much for inviting me. I really enjoyed this conversation. It's always fun talking to you, Hital.
Yeah, we'll get a copy of your book as well, and we'll definitely pass that around.
Cheers.
Oh yeah, also shout out. I'm sure that my dad and my mom and my brother, my sister, and my sister-in-law, brother-in-law, my nephew, my niece. Sorry, taking airtime, but I'm sure they're all super happy that both of us are sitting here today, and I'm sure they're saying a big hello as well.
Hello to you guys also. Take care.
Alrighty, take care.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye. You can end the broadcast on the top right.